Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm doing a video for Paint Couture's creative team. We're going to be creating some French wall decor using stencils and IOD transfers. For my project today, I'm going to be using this MDF blank, and my first step is to remove the twine from up the top. I'm then going to be using Paint Couture's Embossing Medium with this brick stencil that I had in my stash, and I'm going to be using a palette knife to apply the embossing medium over the top of the stencil. So I just have a little bit on my palette knife and I'm dragging it over the top. I've also got one hand holding that stencil in place. Now I'm not going for full coverage here. My vision for this piece is to make it look like an old brick and plaster wall. So I'm going to allow the palette knife to skip over certain sections. Some areas are going to be more defined than others. Some are going to have only partial bits of that embossing medium. So honestly, I just sort of had a bit of a play with it until I was happy with it, and then I pulled the stencil straight up. Here I'm repositioning the stencil down the bottom, and I'm just going to repeat that same process. I'm definitely going for a vintage look here, and that's another reason why I decided to leave the background the brown MDF tone. I feel like that colour still really worked with the look that I'm going for. Once I finished applying the embossing medium, I lifted the stencil straight up, and here I'm going to reposition the stencil, line it up with the pattern, and I'm going to continue that design over to the right hand side. Now I did let the embossing medium that I already did, I let that dry completely before I moved on to these steps where I'm overlapping the stencil and continuing the pattern. It's best to do this so that you don't accidentally smear or pull back some of the product that you've already got down. I let the additional embossing medium dry completely, and now I'm going to come in with some more of the embossing medium, but I'm dragging it over the top of the bricks just using the palette knife. As I said, I want this to look like a brick and sort of plaster wall, so here I'm trying to make it look like the areas of the plaster that still remain are sort of patchy. The rest of the plaster has worn away, revealing the older brick underneath, and I'm just sort of applying that embossing medium in different directions, pulling it from side to side and down, and I just sort of went a little bit more random. I did focus a little bit more of the extra embossing medium in the center because we are going to be doing a stencil. If I inspire you to try any of the Paint Couture products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. I will put it in the description and on the screen. I just get a little thank you from Paint Couture in return. I let the embossing medium dry completely, and then I came in with Paint Couture's Buttercream chalk paint. I'm going to be applying one coat, and I'm running my brush lightly over the top of the texture, pressing a little bit heavier in the areas where I don't have the embossing medium, but I'm allowing my brush to skip over certain areas. I still want to be able to see hints of that MDF tone underneath, and again, that's just going to add to the aged look. So I just ended up doing one coat. When that was dry, I took out this French style stencil that I had in my stash, and I'm going to be centering that, and then I'm using Paint Couture's pitch black chalk paint. I'm offloading most of the paint onto a paper towel, and then I'm going to start swirling the stencil brush that I'm using over the top of the stencil. You always want to make sure that you offload a lot of your paint, otherwise you will get some bleeding underneath your stencil. I'm just going to work my way around until I have all of that stencil design down. I did end up only doing one coat. The pitch black chalk paint is very highly pigmented, so that's all that it needed. And again, not going for perfect here. I'm fine if my brush skips over certain areas, or some areas are more faded than others. When the black was dry, I repositioned the stencil in place and then shifted it slightly over to the left. And then I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to go over the top of it. So this is going to give it sort of a shadowed or like a two-toned look. You'll still be able to see some of the black, but the bronze will be the more predominant color. I really love doing this technique. It just gives a bit more interest to your stencils. So I'm just applying the bronze to the outside border and some some of the sort of more ornate sort of scroll details in the center, and I only ended up doing one coat. I let the bronze paint dry completely, and then I took out Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in gloss, and I'm going to seal the entire piece. I want to add some transfers, but I do have quite an uneven porous surface here with the embossing medium and obviously the chalk paint, and sealing up the surface is definitely going to help my transfers to stick a lot better. I let this dry completely, and then I took out this rose design here from IOD's new Rose Botanicals transfer, and I'm going to be cutting this design almost in half. I like to do this when I've got a larger floral design. It just makes it go a little bit further. So I'm just going to continue trimming it until I have the pieces to the size I want. Then I'm going to peel off the backing and position the first transfer on the right. I'm using the transfer tool that comes in the pack. I'm rubbing that down, and then I will pick up one of the plastic corners there and start lifting as I'm rubbing. Next, I'm going to add the rose design on the right. I'm going to have some of that coming off the page there because I just really want to work it around the stencil. I don't want to obscure too much of that. And again, repeating that same process, rubbing the design down, then picking up a corner and lifting as I go. So cutting the transfer in half definitely makes the design go further. It also looks a little bit better visually to have the roses coming in from the sides and having sort of partial roses visible, almost sort of like there are roses growing up the side of the wall where this sign is. So I've just repositioned some more of the leaves, and I'm going to rub and burnish those down as well. And I'll just keep adding bits of transfer until I'm happy with how it looks. Finally, I'm just going to add a couple of leaves in the top left-hand corner of the piece and then one in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm then going to seal the transfers and the entire piece with another coat of that Extreme Guard in gloss. Next, I took out Paint Couture's light brown sugar glaze, and I'm applying that over the top of the dry clear coat. Adding it over the top of a clear coat is going to give us more freedom to wipe it back. I'm really working the glaze into the brick details and obviously the plaster style effect that I was trying to achieve with layering more of the embossing medium over the top, and adding the glaze is really going to pick up all of that texture. And now I'm using a wet wipe to pull back that product, and I can pull back as much or as little as I like because I have that clear coat down. So I'm wiping it back, but I'm also dabbing at it as well. When that was dry, I repositioned the stencil we were using before and took out Antique Gold Luxe Metallic Paint. I'm just going to add some hints of this brighter gold tone in the border areas and a little bit on the scroll details in the center. I felt like it had sort of faded a little bit into the background, and adding this bit of metallic is going to bring it a bit more to the forefront again and give us a little bit more shine. Finally, I'm going to cut some twine so that I can create a hanging attachment. This one did come with the other twine attachment, but it was a little bit thicker, so I thought I'd use this thinner twine. So I'm just going to thread it through one side, and then I'm going to tie a knot so that it doesn't go through the hole, and I'll repeat the same process on the other side. And here's a look at our finished wall decor. I love how this turned out. Using the embossing medium to create interesting backgrounds is definitely one of my favorite things to do, and the metallics just look perfect with that stencil. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, remember to hit that like button and comment. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the videos from the Paint Couture creative team. If you'd like to grab any of the products used today, make sure you check out the links in the description. Thanks for watching.